Hello, good evening, everyone, and welcome to another Drama is Life, where we talk about what was, what is, and what will be regarding mental health and social topics, um, and particularly mental health across the lifespan, with the goal to decrease the stigma of mental health among our community, particularly among African American and faith based communities. Hello, I am your host, Theresa White. I am the CEO and founder of In Time Creative Counseling Services, located here in Terre Haute, Indiana, where we offer in person and virtual sessions. And our specialty is drama therapy, which is an embodied technique that helps with trauma, depression, anxiety, and grief are my specialties. So, if you have never heard of drama therapy, I would love to talk to you about what it is and how it could help you. So, if you're interested in those services, you can go to our website and get a little bit more information on drama therapy, www.intimeccs.com, or you can call us during our regular office hours, and I'll be happy to talk to you regarding drama therapy. But tonight, we are with our topic regarding I won't say the trail, but I guess I will use the awareness month that we've been talking about this month, and that is not really anything to smile about, but it's Domestic Violence Awareness Month. And so October is that month. I know, as we talked a couple of weeks ago, a lot of people um, may not be aware of that, because this is the month that people typically celebrate Halloween and dressing up and doing all the things, festive candy, all of that. And so I want to talk tonight about destructive patterns. Have you ever wondered in your own life if some of the things that you have done or allowed in relationships have been destructive? And I say destructive as in not helpful, has not helped build the relationship. Um, and have you ever wondered if it was something that could be changed? So, we're going to talk about destructive patterns that can show up in relationships and some things about what to do with them. So, hello, hello. Please also, if you are joining us, please like, share, subscribe. Thank you so much for joining. If you have comments, I welcome those. If you have questions, I welcome those as well. Would love to have you interact with me during it. If you do have questions and you're watching after the live, that's not a problem. Put those questions still in the comments section. And then I will get to those during the week, because I do go through and check the questions or the comment area, see if there's anything that I did not address in the actual video live podcast itself. All right. So I want to describe or define the word destructive, because I know sometimes people can look at that and just think immediately violent, and that's not always the case at all. And for those who don't know, not only do I do therapy in person, and I do groups as well. And speaking of, let me um, give this note for any woman that is in the Terre Haute area. If you are interested in a women's support group, we're going to be starting one at the Phoenix Elite Gym in partnership with Morgan Wilson. So shout out to Morgan and Phoenix Elite Gym. And you can definitely sign up for that group if you're a woman in the community. For those who are members, it is a free group. For those in the community, it will be $15 per session, which is um, really, really a great discount to what group therapy actually costs normally. If you have more questions about that, the group is called Coffee, Cream, and Conversations. So we will be getting together, having coffee and some conversations to help with some of the stressors that are going on currently. And of course, just to be able to talk about those and have a supportive and safe space to be able to do so. So if you're interested in that, please contact me. You can reach out to me and sign up as well. You can reach out if you would like to sign up for the group. It's Theresa, THERESA, at Intime CCS, INTIME, CCS.com, and send me an email so we can reach out to you and get you signed up for the group. For those who are on Rose Holman's campus, For students, we have a couple of groups for the students on the Rose Homing campus. We have a depression and anxiety group, or stress management, helping with time management and all the things that happen as a student. Stress. That's going to be, and that is no charge to the student. Thank you for the sponsorship of Rose Holman and that partnership as well, which has been going great. So if you know a Rose student or you are a Rose student, that is a group that you can get involved in. And you don't have to, with these groups, you don't have to come to every session. You can come as needed. And so Rose Holman groups are sponsored. There's also going to be a Sunday group that is regarding life transitions, and that's going to be going over grief and loss of relationships, transitions of life that may happen in our lives. So we're going to be dealing with grief, loss, and the changes that come with all of that. That is again on Sundays. That will be at 2:30, again on Rose Holman campus for the students. So if you know any of the students, please let them know. And again, it's sponsored by the school, so no charge to them. But for the community members, for the women's group, Coffee, Cream, and Conversation, we would love to have you come and join. Any adult is welcome. And so you can reach out to myself, or if you're a Phoenix Elite Gym member, reach out to Morgan Wilson. All right, so I'm going to throw that in there since I talked about groups, because I do those as well. I want to define destructive. So for those who don't know, as I said before, not only do I do groups, but I also do training seminars, or mental health, what we call professional development moments and days. So if you are interested for your church, for your school, for your organization, reach out to me, because I know that I do phenomenal presentations, and we can talk about some really great things with adding the drama therapy component in there with movement and art. I think makes the presentation way more intriguing and interactive for your members or participants. So with that being said, I want to talk about destructive behaviors or patterns in relationships. So one of the questions that I did when I did a presentation on destructive behaviors, my first question that I wanted to ask to anybody watching, and please give me a thumbs up or a yes, if you would let me walk up to you and slap you. How many? Yes? Any yeses? Any yeses? And again, this is not to make fun, as we're talking about Domestic Violence Awareness Month. This is not to make fun or poke jokes at it, but I really want to ask this question seriously. And of course, most people are like, absolutely not. Theresa, what is wrong with you that you even asked that question, right? So your response is immediately to pull back. Even I haven't even touched you, right? So just the question alone, I saw my participants in this training physically respond, backing up, face scrunched, and immediately responding. There was no one that sat there and mumbled, well, I don't know, baby, right? Immediately, absolutely not. No, you're not going to smack me if you want to get smacked back, right? So, and I love that, because I love that response, because that's a natural response that people will have to this question, right? Absolutely. No, you're not about to come up to me and smack me. Are you crazy? Absolutely not. Excuse me. Good evening, BJ. So, and I say that because most people would say no. Yet there are people that are experiencing being physically assaulted in their own home/family. And they would have started the same or answered this question the same way several months, years back, right? No, I'm not going to allow this to happen. I point that out because patterns don't generally just abruptly show up random. They are built. So when we talk about destructive patterns are built, they're learned. And so most people, again, I don't know anyone who said yes. I don't think I had anyone to say yes to that question. Um, but it's true, because people are like, no, I wouldn't just allow this to happen, either without defending myself, without moving away or walking away. If you're stronger than me, or whatever the case may be, I'm going to try to protect myself. So generally, people's response is protection. Physically, I'm gonna move back. No, I'm gonna give you, an aggressive response verbally. Absolutely not. So that you will deter you from this action, right? So you would know immediately what my stance is. There's no question about it. You don't have to try to think. I think Theresa meant she would. No, absolutely not. She said no, right? Absolutely. She said absolutely not. And most people are doing the same. They're saying absolutely not. This will not happen, right? Yet there are destructive patterns that have been built in a lot of relationships. And not every destructive pattern, let me give this disclaimer now. Every destructive pattern does not lead to physical abuse, not at all. But it does not mean that it's not destructive in a way that it cannot, or that it could be not building or healthy for you or the relationship. So I want to have that conversation tonight. And let me also say with this before we go into any deeper, if you feel like this is a harder conversation for you, I definitely welcome you to take care of yourself, to exit. If you feel like these conversations or today's conversation with this month awareness focus is harder to listen to. I don't want you to try to sit through it if you feel like it's bringing up really intense responses or emotions for you, or watch it with a support person, somebody that you know that will be a support for you. Um, I say that because, again, sometimes these conversations can bring emotions, responses, thoughts arising in the person. So I want to make sure that you're taking care of yourself. Take a break, walk away if you need to. That's fine. I do want you to have the information. This is, again, not to replace a therapy session or anything that you may be working on with a personal practitioner. But for those who are not in therapy, or for those who are not working on something that if this brings up something, you're like, I really need to talk about that, please reach out. We don't want you to just sit with these things. We want you to reach out and get the services or the help that is needed, okay? So that you can feel support in that. All right. So let me define destructive, right? So people are like, well, maybe I got some destructive patterns, but I don't really know. When I say destructive, I mean causing great or irreparable harm or damage. That's what destructive means. So you think about a natural building or, um, a place that somebody could destroy. They would like, that person's destructive. That means they're destroying something that is going to be very difficult to repair, or it's damaged to the point that it can't be repaired. I say that because sometimes we have in our lives relationships that has been damaged, that has been um, that's had harm happen to it, and some people feel like that's irreparable. That harm was so great that they cannot repair that. That may mean, and a lot of times it does mean, that there was a destructive pattern that was happening in that relationship with that partner or that person or whoever it may be, because it's not always with romantic partners. A destructive pattern can show up in any dynamic of a relationship, in a boss and an manager and an employee, um, family relationships, in a parent-child relationship, romantic partner relationship, friendships. It can show up in different dynamics of relationships, professional or personal. Okay. So I want you to pay attention to these destructive patterns, because if you or the other person is doing any of these, or start to notice some of the things I talk about tonight, I want you to um, really work on getting that changed. Because, again, destructive means it can be causing great or irreparable. It's a tongue twister, y'all. Great or irreparable harm or damage. Okay. And again, I'm not saying that laughing. I'm laughing at the fact that my tongue is getting twisted on that word. Um, I want to also define with this regard is toxic. That word is thrown around so much. You're toxic. You're a toxic person. I can't be around toxic people. And I'm not making fun of that, but it's like it's so loosely used that I think people have just become numb to hearing the word instead of really understanding what people mean or what's being done in a relationship with regards to this word. Toxic. You remember that sign that's on like on the end of one of those tin cans outside. It has the skeleton face and it has a big X. It's like a bone face, skeleton face with an X on it, or it's a big old caution sign on it, because it's saying something in here can do, again, great damage, and it's so harmful or unpleasant in an extensive way. It's extensively unpleasant, and it can bring harm in a gradual, which means over time, or subtle way. So you ever had a spill like ammonia, and people will say, "Well, be careful, right? Not to mix this with certain things or ammonia itself." And I'm gonna use that as an example. You inhale it, maybe small whiff of it would be like, "Ooh," and you kind of back away. But gradually, if you continue to increase that amount, it can do some serious harm to the person who's inhaling it, right? So the same way when they say again toxic. So when we talk about toxic behaviors in a relationship, that means they're very harmful, and they can be gradual or a subtle way. So we want to make sure that we are, especially with this month, addressing what those can look like. Okay, so with that word destructive, I want to also talk about, and I'm not going to go into deep detail, but since we talk about the domestic violence awareness, abuse is to treat a person or to treat something with cruelty or violence, especially on a regular or repeated basis. And again, especially, I'm not saying abuse can happen one time, because you can treat someone with cruelty or violence once, right? As I just said, if I came up to you and I smacked you, um, I would expect that there's going to be some type of reaction, whether there's going to be that I am hit back by whoever this person may be, or I will not be seen as a safe person to be around, right? And so there's going to be a response for the treatment and the cruelty and violence that was used on this person, or whatever the thing is that maybe I slapped. And I'm not violent, don't intend to be. Um, so I say that because when we think about abuse, again, this is a treatment or the treatment of a person with cruelty or violence. And so and I want to say that it's repeated and regular. And that goes with our other word that we just started talking about with regards to gradual or subtle. So think about patterns that show up in relationships. And I'm going to just focus on um, one particular pattern, right? And we'll talk about communication pattern. So with a communication pattern, because I know there's a lot of patterns that could really be um, destructive, right? But I want to use a communication pattern. And so you probably heard about the three different types of communication: passive, aggressive, and assertive. People have heard of passive aggressive, but that's just a blend of two different types of communication. So um, we're not going to go deep into that tonight because that's a different live for a different time. But I do want to say that a lot of times destructive communication patterns show up in relationships. You ever heard this statement? And for people that I've worked with before, this has shown up a lot of times. Um, you ever heard these questions in a relationship? What's wrong? You don't love me? And however you answer that, or you love me, don't you? And sometimes that can be a destructive communication pattern, because that pattern, depending on how it's used, generally when I hear that statement of "you don't love me" or "you love me, don't you," as if someone is using that pattern or using that question to get someone to behave or do something that they want them to do that maybe they're not doing initially, right? I want you to go to the store and buy me bread. I'm gonna use a very general statement. Um, I don't really feel like Theresa going to the store right now and buying you bread. For those It's a little chilly outside, right? And then someone responds and says, you love me, don't you? How does that question relate to me going not wanting to go outside to buy bread? So, and then people will respond, "Of course I do. Why would you ask that?" And then the destructive communication pattern or harmful communication pattern can follow up with, "Well, because I want you to go get me some bread and you're not going." And the person can feel, and it leads to maybe the person who's like, "I didn't really want to go to get bread," now second guessing their own choice and with their own desires. And they will push past those feelings of, "I don't want to go. I'm going to go. Fine, I'll go." Just to prove that they love that person. But that can lead to feelings of guilt, frustration, anger, resentment, because initially it was communicated in a healthy manner that I don't want to go to the store right now to buy bread. I'm tired, or whatever the reason could be, right? So instead of the person saying, "I would really like you to go, but if you don't go, I understand. I'll try to get some bread tomorrow." That would be a healthy response to someone saying, "I really don't feel like it." Now you can say, "Will you please go?" And if they say, "No, I really don't feel like it," then we leave it alone. Generally, after asking once or twice in a healthy relationship, to keep going over and over again can become destructive. "Please, will you please go? Think about it. And children don't mean it to be destructive, and I don't mean it to sound like children are destructive. But think about how it makes a person feel when you say over and over again, "No, you can't have, please, please, can you please?" After a while, you give in, and maybe some parents, again, depending on who you are, and I'm not saying just parents and children, but the person may say, "Okay, fine." But notice that typically the "okay, fine" is with an eye roll, it's with a huge huff of fine, which means that was not a willingness to give. That was not a "you're welcome to this item, to this thing, to this action." It was "I gave in because I was maybe exhausted with the pleases that you kept using, or asking for. You kept asking over and over again, and it was exhausting me to keep saying no, and you're not listening to my no." Now, if I'm saying no, please, no, that means you're not listening to the no that I've already given you the first, second, or third time, or however many times. Again, after the second time, it can start to become abusive, right? It can become destructive in communication. Um, so, and I give another statement that can sound, people like to use the word manipulative. Like, you're just trying to get me to do what you want me to do, right? You want to make me happy, right? Those kind of statements or alluding. Um, and I'll use this for with regards to trying to get, "How long do you expect me to wait?" And that's regarding a romantic sexual relationship. You know, um, well, okay, if I can't get it from you, I'll get it somewhere. Very destructive patterns, communication patterns to allude that if you don't do what I want, I'm going to hurt you by doing it with someone else. And again, that's not a healthy response. And so I just give that as an example, just a few examples. People probably have heard those examples, but I want to give some subtle communication that are destructive, right? You may not think it's destructive, but it can be destructive. Um, does anyone ever feel like they got the silent treatment in a relationship? And I'm going to be transparent. I have given and gotten the silent treatment. And in some cases, again, there's a healthy way to do that. The healthy way that's not destructive is to say, I need some time to think about this, and then I'll come and talk to you in a moment. Absolutely. You go get the time to be silent, sit in your room, whatever you take a drive, whatever you need to do to get silent. I'm going to go finish doing my own thing, right? It becomes destructive when the other person in the relationship, whether again, this is professional, personal, family, whatever, they have no idea why you're silent or not speaking with them. And they may even ask, what's going on, Therese? Are you okay? And you give them nothing. You don't say anything. That's destructive because it's breaking down communication within this relationship. And when you're quiet or you're not answering, whether it is, I'm really angry with you right now and I'm trying to watch my words, so I'm going to be quiet for the moment. Can we talk about it later? See how that clears up miscommunication? And that's a healthy response. I may say, I'm really angry right now and I'm trying to control my words. Now, that takes a healthy place to say that. Some people don't have that, right? So they're just a silent. I'm gonna huff at you and I'm gonna look away and you're trying to still grab. Theresa, you okay? Hey, what's okay? And you try to leave them alone. You come back to, next few hours or however long it's been. Because now you're starting to have a reaction. And the other person's thinking, are they mad at me? What did I do? And you start to question your own actions, your words, and you are starting, did I do something? And you're asking the other person, and they're just quiet, which doesn't help. It's not helping bridge the communication. It's not helping solve the problem at all. It's continuing to break it down because when you're silent and you give no response, then the other person or partner in this relationship, whether again it's professional or personal, is left to their own thoughts. hmm And that's the issue. So now I'm left to think maybe Theresa is mad. Well, she has to be because she's quiet. Or, and don't get me wrong, there's sometimes you can do things without using verbal words. If I'm struggling with communicating and saying to you, I'm angry, Theresa, I'm angry with you, or whatever, right? I'm saying, I'm really hurt, I'm really frustrated. There can be a time that when I'm not with you, if I'm in a different room, I can write it out and say, please give me a minute. I'll talk to you when I'm calm. Then the person's like, oh, okay. Now, I say that because that can start off healthy. But when it goes to an extended time, well, it's been 2 weeks and I still ain't ready to talk to you. That's extended. That's over and above a general amount of time that someone may use to deal with an issue or a problem within a relationship. And let me tell you, I'll use it professionally because most people can kind of catch it professionally more than they can in a personal. So say your boss says, I have a problem with you. And I'm going to use myself. Theresa, I have a problem with you. You're like, okay, what's the problem? And they're just quiet. You're like, or they just don't say anything at all. Your boss is not, they come in, they walk by you, they don't say hello, good morning. And you're like, is the boss okay today? They're in a good mood today. What's going on? Everybody's like, I don't know. They're talking to me, but they're not talking to you. So you go to the person, and some people may respond and be like, well, you ain't talking to me, I ain't talking to you, which again is not healthy. That's a destructive pattern as well. It can lead to destruction because it's destroying the communication between you and the other person. So if I go to a supervisor or boss and say, hey, Theresa, is everything okay? I said hello to you, you didn't speak, or you haven't said anything to me today, and that's usually not like you. They just sit there quiet. And say they say, I'm gonna come talk to you when I'm better. And it's been 2 weeks. You coming to work every day. And they still ain't say nothing to you. You're just waiting for them to come and bring up the issue with you. 2 weeks, wouldn't that feel like something's going on? Why is it taking this person or my boss this long to bring up a concern? And so when you are left there, you're left with your own devices of thinking. And I say that because sometimes there are communication errors or patterns that people use within relationships that they think they're trying to get across a message. I want you to know I'm mad. And again, I said before, when I was young, I used it when I was younger. I ain't gonna speak to them, and I'm quiet with my friend, or I ain't calling you today, or whatever. But they don't know what they don't know. I can't fix a problem until you communicate it to me. But you're angry about a problem that you won't give me the respect to tell me what the problem is so that I can fix it. That's destructive. That's destructive, and that's when I say destructive, that's a very immature way of handling it. Because again, I was just a teenager and young adult, but I realized that didn't help it. When you get done with that silent treatment, did it help? Did it bring up? Did it solve any of the problems? Most of the time, no, it did not. Now, again, the healthy way to say, I just need a minute to get by myself, or give me some space so I can think clear, so I can process, or I'm going to come back to you. That's appropriate. That's healthy. But please come back and communicate with the other person with an appropriate amount of time, whether that's give me a couple of hours, give me a day. It should not go longer than 24 to 48 hours, unless we're talking about an abusive situation and you need an extended amount of space from the person. Generally, by then, you're not trying to have a conversation verbally because the pattern has gotten so intense or adverse. There is no words for the moment. As we mentioned before, um, that's when we see abuse happen, right? Abuse has happened because this has been a repeated pattern, or I won't say a repeated pattern, but it's, yeah, repeated. Abuse is a repeated pattern. So that's just an example, right? A few examples of communication that can be destructive. Let me also give just one more that I have seen in relationships. And we talked about toxic behaviors. Communication that says, that tears you down. And I'll say it that way. Any type of words that make you feel less than a human being, makes you feel less than worthy, like you're not good enough for this person, this relationship, or just in general, that's destructive behavior, destructive patterns in relationships. And I'll say things, well, as I said before, well, if you don't give it to me, I'm gonna get it somewhere. All right, well, if you don't love me, somebody, well, I won't say somebody love. So if you don't love me, somebody will. But if you don't do it, somebody will. Um, and it's like, are you trying to get me to do something for you instead of just saying out loud or straightforward? As you're talking about assertive communication, will you go to the store and grab some bread for me, please? Oh, okay, well, tonight I don't really feel like it. I can pick it up tomorrow on my way home. Healthy exchange, healthy communication. I've stated that I don't want to do it tonight, but I can do it at another time. And the response is not, you don't love me, so you don't love me, do you? Or you love me, don't you? It's not a guilt tripping question afterward. They're trying to lead to guilt or to get you to do something with um, as a response to feeling guilt, or out of fear that this person's going to leave you because you don't go do this one action for them. Um, Now, again, we're talking about with a balance of healthy, because I'm not saying, um, with regards to leaving somebody or the fear that they're going to leave. Um, we want to have that conversation if there's a fear. You're going to, if there's a, I'm doing this because I'm worried you're going to leave me. If I don't go get bread from the store, that means there's some other destructive communication happening. And sometimes, I'm not saying it's always between the two partners or the person that, work wise or whoever the person may be. Sometimes destructive patterns are happening right here, which can come out with, they don't love me, right? And you keep saying over and over again, do you love me? And not that the person's doing anything negative that's showing that they don't love you, but that can start to turn destructive inwardly, and it can turn destructive outwardly within this relationship if it's not addressed. So if I'm someone that just keeps thinking over and over again, I remember as a younger, in my younger years, I did struggle with self-esteem. Um, and so it was a lot of like, well, are you worthy? And so those internal messages of, are you, do they love you? Do they like you? And those kind of things can come out once they stay here for so long, because the scriptures talk about out of the abundance of the heart, the mouth speaks. So typically what you hear a person say repeatedly is something that they've already been holding into their heart or they've been thinking for a long time. So if it's like, I really think you're going to leave me, or I'm worried that you're cheating on me, or, and the person's like, I haven't done anything to show that, right? And then they may say, well, no, I'm not doing that, or no, or say the boss situation that I gave with the job. No, Theresa, your job is not in jeopardy. Everything's fine. And you come back the next day. Are you sure my job's not in? After a while, or after, again, repeated behavior, that becomes an abusive pattern to the other person. It can be. And I don't mean abusive as in it's malicious, but I keep asking over and over again when you've been told, no, there's nothing, there's no issue, there's no action that shows that to give you an idea that there's an issue, but you keep asking, do I have a job? Am I gonna have a job tomorrow? You're thinking about firing me, ain't you? I know you're thinking about firing me. And they're like, no, I think you're doing great work. What? That's not true. And they can try to encourage you and try to do all the things, right? Whatever all the things would be. And if that keeps coming up, then it's something to say, this is not a pattern that's happening within this exchange of a relationship. It's happening here. I feel that my job is at jeopardy. I'm worried that I'm not doing good work or whatever that may be. And which means if it's an internal, I need to go and work on this or take care of this so that it doesn't continue to be a destructive communication pattern between me and whoever else. Because I will tell you, if you have a communication pattern that's harmful or destructive internally, eventually it's going to come out externally. You're going to say it to somebody, or it's going to show up in your behavior, right? So, as I gave the example earlier with, would you let me come up to you and smack you, right? Or slap you? People are going to say no. But when we talk about patterns that we allow, that we excuse, that we are like, this really is hurting, and it's hurting our relationship, it's hurting me, that becomes gradual. And how does somebody boil a frog? Have you ever heard that statement? Right? You don't boil it immediately and throw it in the water because it jumps right out. But you sit it in water that it's comfortable with and slowly turn up the heat. And it never notices it because its body is constantly getting accustomed to the heat that's getting turned up, and it never moves. So it stays within hot water, right? Until the point that it boils to death. That's how a relationship is when there's destructive patterns of communication showing up. The first time it's like, okay, I didn't like that, but if I don't address it, I'm still sitting in this water as the temperature is boiling or getting hotter and hotter to the point that it's can be destroying this relationship because one or two of us are not addressing the pattern. We're not addressing the issue or the question or whatever keeps being brought up, or how this person is interacting or responding or questioning me all the time, or whatever the pattern may be, right? Um, so, so this was, I know just kind of a snippet, but I want you to take some time to just take one relationship. If you're up for the challenge, and I definitely hope that you are, think about one relationship, and you can go professional, personal, family, romantic, however. And I want you to think about what's something that maybe they say or do that really bothers me, or that bothers me, even if it's just a little bit, that bothers me, that hurts my feelings, right? And the second question is, have I talked to them about it? Or have I just said, oh, that's okay? And again, you can do that reverse wise too. Is there something that I may have done that my partner has told me is bothering me, or bothering them or hurt them, and I am still doing it, still repeatedly doing it, still calling them stupid or degrading them, still, whatever that may be. And then I say, well, I didn't mean that you're stupid. I don't mean it. Well, out of the abundance of the heart, the mouth speaks. If you're calling me stupid continually, somewhere in you, you believe that. So to keep saying you didn't mean it makes me start to question the truth of your words, in which in a twofold interaction, whatever kind of relationship it may be, that's generally how it is. So it's important to be able to recognize your own. And sometimes it's hard because we've been maybe around somebody that had destructive patterns that we picked up in our upbringing or in our, growing on maturity. And we have to recognize that in ourselves. And then not only when we recognize it, don't just excuse it and say, oh, well, that's just how I grew. That's how we do. People say that, well, that's just how 3C is, or that's just how. No. If there's something that is destructive or is hurting somebody or hurting this relationship, please address it. Or even if you say, I need help addressing it. I don't know how to change this, but I'm wanting to change it. Can you help me? And find someone who has the skills to help you. If you don't have anybody in your inner circle, again, In Time Creative Counseling Services is here if you need that assistance, because we want you to have healthy relationships. We want you to have healthy patterns, healthy communication within relationships. And communication is an ever learning art. So nobody is top tier 1,000, that we've reached the peak. Um, but if you notice those things that are like, that may be a pattern that I need to work on, please reach out for some assistance so we can get that pattern checked and changed. Like that, checked and changed. Again, feel free to add any questions. Hello, Alex. Um, Comments, concerns. Thank you so much for watching tonight, and I hope that you learned some things about destructing patterns and how many of us have them. Hopefully, we're working on not having any of them. Thank you again for watching Drama's Life, where we learn about what was, what is, and what could be if nothing changes. Have a great, great week, blessed week, and we will see you next Monday. Same place, same time. Bye bye, you all.